All right, now we got Apple shareholder Justin Danhof. Justin, you heard what Russ was saying. Essentially, they might be playing fast and loose with the watch numbers, but the general numbers seem to impress the general Wall Street community, especially going into the holiday season. You're not buying it. Why not?
Maybe generally, Neil, but not specifically. So when your profits go up 31%, as Apple's did, how is the stock only up, $2.28 when I left for the studio this afternoon? That's the difference between rhetoric and reality. What Tim Cook is putting out is rhetoric, and what the investors are seeing is reality. Now, you have to know
the investors are okay with it. We're up over $3. Now, you're right. A second, a moment in time does not a trend make. But normally, even last quarter, when the numbers were boffo, better than expected, they were tanking the stock. Now, I'm not smart enough to know how these trends go, but there are a lot of people look at this and say, well, if Apple can absorb these body blows, and with some of the promising products they have, they might turn this around. You're not so sure.
Well, promising products. The first new product in hardware since is the watch, as you were just discussing. That's the first new product since 2010, and they won't segregate out how the sales are doing. This lack of transparency under Tim Cook is really starting to trouble investors. And we may see growth.
No. There, I think you're being a little unfair. You could argue that Steve Jobs in his day, would hide the things that weren't going so well, and just focus on the things that were, right?
Well, like I said, I think there's this mismatch between rhetoric and reality, and the difference between consumers and investors, right? Where a lot of the consumers, you can pull the wool over their eye for so long, like their new ad campaign about the latest iPhone, right? What has changed? Everything. Well, that's simply not true. There was very slight innovations in the phone. So when you're selling to areas like China, where there's an emerging middle class, and a lot of folks are buying their first ever iPhone, everything is new and great and wonderful to them. But when you're telling folks here in America and in some European countries, everything has changed, and then they go buy their new phone, there's this big disconnect. And you can only have that disconnect between the rhetoric of the CEO, the rhetoric of the ad campaigns, and the reality of the lack of innovation in the products for so long. Because the reports were great that just came out last night, but 63% of the revenue is still driven from the iPhone. So if we're pulling away engineers to work on a car, if we're pulling away engineers to work on a watch that is doing so poorly we don't want to tell people how it's doing, that's where my concern comes in.
All right. Now, remember, poorly by Apple's definition might be different than others. I mean, this is a company that sold 48 million iPhones, and that's deemed, yeah, okay. But
if Hillary's testimony last week about Benghazi taught us anything, is that a lot of folks don't mind being lied to. So they don't mind being lied to for a short time. Over the long term, the reality has to start matching the rhetoric for Apple, too.
Lying is one thing, and then there's just not volunteering information on another. I guess ethically it's a little bit challenging, but you raise good points, Justin. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Neil.
All right, it's